Hi, friend. It's Carmen here talking about homeschooling with our friend Lana Chilton. Before we get started, I wanted to just pause for just a minute and address where you're at and what's going on right now currently with the coronavirus. I know there's a lot that is to be considered. Maybe you're finding yourself in a place of angst or fear, and I just want to take a minute and read to you Psalm 24, verse 1. It says, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein." So if you're a person of prayer, I ask you continue to be praying for this virus and for our world and for your neighborhood and your community. And if you're not a person of prayer, I suggest that you look into that and see what the Word of God says about praying. So just wanted to give you a little encouragement and context for who the world belongs to and those who dwell in the world. So again, my friend Lana Chilton is here. Hi, Lana. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And so we are asking questions of who, what, why, when, where about homeschool. And this is obviously for the people who might feel thrown into kind of what's happening in their lives right now, getting a grasp on who does this and how do they do it. So I appreciate you taking your time to be here today.
Yeah, my
So
pleasure.
tell us just real quickly about your family situation
Sure.
in your home.
So I have a husband, Brian, who works kind of a Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday. You know, he leaves the house about 5:15 in the morning, comes home about 5 in the evening, kind of a job. And so we always have evenings together for activities, things like that. And we have a 12, almost 13-year-old son. So he's in the 7th grade right now.
Okay.
And that's our little dynamic. My mom moved to the Savannah area to be with us about 2 years ago. She's just a few minutes away. So we're very connected with her as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. I know everybody does life differently.
Yeah.
And I know that stories have power. So the power of your story is going to connect with someone somewhere. And if you're listening and you're going, how do I do this? Well, I hope that you connect with Lana's story. So we're just going to jump into the questions that I have for you. Super simple questions. And go ahead and begin with why you homeschool.
Yeah. So Carmen, it's fun that you asked me these questions because it kind of takes you back through memory lane. This is our 8th year of homeschooling, and I had not considered homeschool until about this time of year when my son was 4. He would be turning 5 over the summer. It was time to go to kindergarten registration and do all of that. And I did it. And I just didn't have a settled sense about that. We had had so much fun for 4 years, learning together, playing together. And while I only had one, that was just the way the Lord wrote our story. We had lots of people in our life at the time. We loved doing life together. And then I was contemplating this idea of sending him to a school and just giving up a lot of opportunity with him. Yeah. And so our family, my husband and I, began to pray about that. And I just spoke with the people in my life that I all of a sudden realized were homeschooling. Friends of mine that I valued so much for so many other reasons had chosen that path. So we prayed about that and then said, hey, let's try it for a year. It gave me a sense of joy and peace to consider doing that. And if it doesn't work for a year, then we can do something different. And we found that it was just the right fit for our family. So as far as the why, it started with I just can't imagine losing this opportunity to continue to be the primary educator in my son's life. And we continue to do it. Much for that same reason, but not just for me to be the primary educator, but for us to give him opportunities to learn from a Christ-centered perspective with other influencers that are coming from a Christ-centered perspective that can teach him not just book information, but really just about life and loving the Lord. So our relationship with the Lord and our relationship with one another has continued to be the motivator to homeschool.
That's good. So it's okay to do trial and error. Like you said,
absolutely.
I did try this. Yeah.
Yes, I did not hear, this is what you should do, Lana. I wasn't one of those moms. And I know some of these moms that are pregnant right now or have infants right now that know they want to homeschool. I was not that mom.
Yeah.
Not that mom at all. In fact, when we got married, I really hadn't given a whole lot of thought to wanting kids. And then God grew that desire in my heart. When we started, it was, Lord, we're going to try this for a year. We think this is how you're leading us. If we're wrong, we will listen to the correction. Let us see the redirection. So that's how we started. Let's see how it goes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So when we were leaving the hospital with our firstborn son, after he was born, he was 48 hours old or whatever. We were exiting the hospital parking lot and Jim goes, I want you to homeschool our kids. Wow. And I looked at him and I was like, I can't do that. And I didn't know anything about homeschooling at the time, but I just assessing myself, I was like, I'm not organized enough, And I did cover that in the first episode about kind of owning who I am and why I do what I do and how I do it and everything. So I look at you in admiration and go, I think that you are a very organized person. And I know that you probably still have up days and down days, but I think that anyone who kind of is wired in an organized way, they're going to find value in what you have to say. So tell us who you homeschool.
So I homeschool our son, Nathaniel. He is 12. He'll be 13 in July. And he's just a super kid. I've said before, the Lord chose to build our family with one, but gave him enough personality for three. And he really loves to learn. And that's what's made this such a fun journey. He really loves to learn. He loves to grow. He loves a challenge. And we're now at the point I'm learning so much from him. Yeah. So he's a ton of fun. Yeah. So we homeschool just Nathaniel. Now I will say, Carmen, that throughout the years, depending on what we were doing for homeschool, God's given me the opportunity. He's my number one student, but I've had the opportunity to tutor or invest in other students. So when he was super little, we did a little co-op with some of our friends on a Friday every week. We would do science experiments and crafts, and each one of the moms kind of took what was our strength. I did public speaking with the kids, and we just did some things like that. That was always so fun. And then the next year we started a classical conversations community. And ever since the beginning, I've either been a tutor or directing, just giving me the opportunity to also share the joy of homeschooling with others as well. So that's been neat too. So while we do homeschool in our own home with just one, over the years, we've shared the journey.
Right. And I know you, with just one in the home, you also embrace other people's children and you do life with others so beautifully. Sure. I love that. For sure. Okay. So tell us, what do you do? You mentioned classical conversations. Also kind of unpack for us almost like in a day or a week overview. What does that look like for you?
Sure. So that has changed over the years. Also, I just really feel like when you say homeschool, you are not going to have the blueprint for what it will look like as you go forward, because the different years and the different seasons require flexibility and require some change. So that first year of homeschool looked different than 3 years later. But from the very beginning, and I mean from the time I brought him home from the hospital, we used the library to homeschool. And I didn't realize I was homeschooling, but we just loved to read together. And we would read all sorts of books. And the library, well, they were our best friends, And so that was our number one resource. We learned to love to read. And then when it was time for school, we did a curriculum the first year, and I can't even recall the name for sure off the top of my head, but it was neat. It involved lots of books and lots of outside time and lots of learning for a 5-year-old, which was great. The next year we did interclassical conversations, which kind of has served as a skeleton for our homeschool for that first through sixth grade year. We kind of added flesh as we went along, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about classical conversations, but it served as a good skeleton for us. Okay. And then we added in, my son loves science and history and geography and literature, and so we would just add. And so that was always our skeleton. And now that we're in the 7th grade, Classical Conversations offers a completely different program for 7th through 12th graders, which isn't just the skeleton, it's the meat of our curriculum, because you have children involved in it. And so that's really been the meat of our curriculum. As far as how our weeks go, for the past 7 years being in CC, Tuesday has been our community day. So Tuesday, we are in community with a group of people. We are spending classroom time doing various things with our community. And then during the week, we're doing extension work on that curriculum. For us, that really does look like a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday school day. Okay. My husband, that's his schedule at work, and our son Nathaniel's he's been involved in sports, karate, trail life, civil air patrol. Like, there's always been stuff happening in the evenings. And so we've done school for the way our life worked during the day. And so we've always known we had the flexibility. If something came up, we could finish something on a Saturday, things like that. But typically we are a traditional school hour kind of a family. Yeah.
Do you find that on that Monday, Wednesday, I do want to pause because I was going to address this.
Excuse me.
In light of our current public health situation, we know that coronavirus is a threat. However, if you live in Savannah, Georgia, you also know the bigger threat is the pollen outside. And so many of us around here have the pollen cough, including Lana. Yes. And so we don't condemn you for turning away and needing to cough. I'm not threatened by that, just so people know. So do you find that on your Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that your schedule looks the same? Like, okay, at 8 o'clock, we are going to do this. And at 10 o'clock, we're going to do this. Or do you still have to ebb and flow?
Oh, Carmen, I still have to ebb and flow.
Okay.
Now, I will say that I've always started every year with a schedule in mind. I've always had a goal, what I thought was going to work.
Okay.
And if that didn't need adjusted 5 times, you know.
Okay.
I think it was healthy to have a plan as a starting place.
Okay.
But I had to learn early on not to be married to my plan. And I think that's true whether you're homeschooling or whether you're living, you know, like
you're breathing.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do find having a plan helps me to be more productive and intentional. But having a plan, I've learned, has to be submitted to the Lord. I spend time, you know, the way that I kind of do things is I want to spend time with the Lord. I want to be in prayer. And then I really want to take input from those that, you know, I really depend on my people, on my tribe for some input, and I learn from their examples. And then with that wisdom, I make my plan. But my plan is just my plan. And I mean, it's been really honestly a source of growth in my life over the last 8 years of homeschooling, because you're right, Carmen, I am an organized individual. And before homeschooling and when I was working, I was the type who I loved scratching stuff off the list. And I can remember working in the office and adding things to the list just so I could scratch them off the list, you know. And life has just taken a shift where more days than not, I have to look at what didn't get done, evaluate what didn't get done, whether this is on the homeschool planner that my son carries or on my mom teacher planner that I carry. Evaluate what didn't get accomplished, and does it get moved to the next day? Does it get moved to the next week? Or do we scratch it? Was it non-essential? That did not happen in year 1 or year 2 or even year 3. That was something God had to grow in me. What I learned, though, was that being flexible in that not only gave my son the freedom to see that learning happened all the time, not just at the kitchen table. Right. And I'll talk about the kitchen table in a minute, I guess. Yeah. But that there was a way for us to learn when someone needed last minute babysitting because they had to take one of their other children to the doctor, or someone needed a meal because they all of a sudden went into the their spouse went into the hospital. I mean, there was just life that happened. If I hadn't learned to submit that plan to the Lord, I think I would have sent the wrong message to my son, and I would have missed out on opportunities for ministry.
That's good. Yeah. I think I'm going to take that piece of advice from you, because you said having a plan makes you intentional, but then you do have to be flexible in that, because I think sometimes I find I don't want to, quote unquote, waste my time the way I view it in making a plan, because I'm like, I'm not going to stick to it. So it's easier if I just go with what I know is going to happen. But I think that then the problem becomes where there is no vision,
right?
The people perish, which looks like they disappear into their room and go do their own thing. And so I'm going to take that piece of advice from you, is that with a plan comes intentionality. And even though I know the intention of my heart, like, I need to make it more plain probably to the people. That's really good. And I think also another thing that you said is, what if someone needs a babysitter or is sick or whatever? I think being homeschooled does not mean you are not socializing, which I think is a myth. And I think anybody listening who does homeschool goes, I have maybe too much socialization.
We're over-socialized, yes.
But what you do is you find yourself a tribe of other people who homeschool, and then you become each other's community, where you do help carry the load. And you find those. You said something the other day to me that was amazing. I actually shared it with Jim, where, you know, our kids may not need 100 pennies. They need to find 4 good quarters. And that analogy was so good about friends, pulling people in that are close to you and that you value, you know.
My sister-in-law shared that with me, that her husband, my brother-in-law, had said to her, it is like a multiplicative little piece of information. I mean, I shared it with you, and it has just rolled, because I feel like we do kind of think that we need all of this, and really we just need some things that are meaningful, and we need some relationships that are meaningful and deep. And that goes for our children, but it goes for us also. Right. And but we do need the quarters. Yes. We do need the quarters. Yeah. And so we need those people that are going to spur us on, remind us who we are, remind us why we're doing what we're doing, remind us not to just listen to our feelings, and to operate out of a faith perspective. Right. And so thank you for being a quarter, Carmen.
Yeah. Thank you for being a quarter. And I think that another valuable piece of information to know is that as a mom, when you homeschool, you grow, if not more than your kid, but it pushes you and pulls you and challenges you, and you have to be up for the task, you know, and you can You can do it. It's definitely a growing time for mom as well. Okay. So tell us, how do you do what you do?
Yeah. How do I do what I do? So I alluded to this just a little bit, but if I'm going to be effective, I am not going to go into autopilot. Okay. I'm going to spend time each morning before we dive into school. And some of my essentials are, I need to get myself together physically. Okay. Myself personally, I can't do school in pajamas. Okay. I can't wear my robe. I know when I don't feel put together, I don't behave put together. Okay. I've learned that about myself. And so I got to get myself together. I got to get that cup of coffee, and I need to spend some time in the scripture and prayer. And Carmen, over the years, that amount of time has flexed, and God is gracious. God is gracious. Like, I spent time feeling guilty that I don't have the time I used to, when Nathaniel took 2 naps a day or things like that. But I know that our God is a God of grace and not a God of quantity. He doesn't put me on a stopwatch. He's looking for my heart. Yeah. And my heart is, Lord, I am so dependent upon you today. And Carmen, those days that I don't start that way, we feel it. And I have a little classroom at home, but we feel it. My husband feels it when he comes in the door. If really what happens is I just start shooting from the hip, walking in the flesh, making judgments on the fly instead of having the mind that the Lord would have me to have. So that's number one priority. And I know it's the number one priority because I've done it without doing that. And I know the difference. Okay. And then so prayer and people, I mentioned my tribe. And God has been so good to connect us with people, not just that are homeschooling, but are homeschooling from a perspective of wanting to know God more through the process. And so having people involved to learn from, not to compare to, but to learn from and to grow with and to make mistakes with and to pray with has been essential. And then the plan. So I really need a plan in place if we're going to balance the things that we're going to balance and not make it all about school. And I could very easily make it all about school. Yeah. So we plan for fun and we plan for extracurriculars. We plan for ministry. We have to plan for rest, or I won't allow it because I'm just kind of a doer. Right. So we have to plan for rest. I have to plan to look at my husband in the face. So honestly, Carmen, I brought it with me. Like, this is my planner, everybody, for this year. It's time. So pretty. Thank you so much. So my friend, my wonderful homeschooling friend, Rachel, encouraged me to make my own this year, but I'll probably get what I've used in the years past this coming year, just because I learned I'm a creature of habit. Walmart, $9.99, right. Large print planner. I'm going to go get it. Yeah. And it's about time to get the next one. But I have a plan. And then how do I do what I do? I've learned that it's flex with the season, but one sure-fail thing is to do the important things first. Okay. And so once I've taken care of my essentials, the important things with my son are really teaching him to be grounded in scripture and making myself available to him for the relationship building. We have found that our time reading, not just scripture, but then reading other literature together has been our most fun and our most special and our relationship building time. It's also given us context for conversation regarding character and decisions and challenges throughout the year. And so I prioritize those things. How I do what I do with my 7th grader is so much different than with my 2nd grader. Yes. So for Nathaniel, with a 1-child homeschool family, and I will just tell those who are listening that have 1 child, absolutely I questioned whether I should be homeschooling 1 child. Absolutely. I asked myself, is this selfish? Am I keeping him from relationships? I asked all those questions, and the Lord confirmed again and again and again that we were in the kind of situation where we could actually foster wonderful relationships. And because we were a 1-child family, gave us resources to invest in other people. And so God has confirmed that. But I've helped him to learn now, first things first. So first things first for him means Bible, math, and Latin. Okay. And then we go on. Okay. Like we do the things we have to do first. Do the heavy lifting first.
It's like and then we move from there. CrossFit there in the
morning. Yes, heavy lifting first. And but I think paying attention is how I do what I do. Paying attention to the Lord, paying attention to the wisdom of others, and paying attention to the needs of my child. There's really not a formula.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, I know Challenge A, which is the 7th grade level, has provided ample literature for you to read. Yeah. And I think that that's interesting because right about the age where kids might tend to lean their ear towards their peers, this curriculum that you use, they really build the opportunity to have those, if you're reading together like that face to face. It also, you're doing more than school, like anything with homeschool. So you're doing more than just going through literature. You are creating the habit of talking and listening with each other and getting familiar with each other. And it just gives you the tools to have those conversations, and then the means are the subject at hand or whatever.
That's just that's what we're practicing on. We're building skills, but the content's just what we use to practice. Yeah.
That's so good. I love that. So tell me about, where do you homeschool?
Yeah. So in the first couple of years, we had a homeschool room. We had an extra bedroom. We dedicated it as the homeschool room. And I mean, it was a big deal, right? And then after about a year and a half, I realized we don't have a large house. But I realized it was just too far from the kitchen and too far from the laundry room. And I was having to leave a lot to go start this or start lunch or start dinner or do the laundry or make a phone call. And my son was young and he would get distracted. He wasn't going to sit there alone and do a lot. You know, we progressively moved everything into the kitchen. And so we have an eat-in kitchen. The eat-in kitchen area is the school area for the most part. We do use the living room for our reading and our conversations, but pretty much everything else has happened at the kitchen table. That's just the kind of student that I had, and it worked well for him, worked well for me. He's grown and he's matured so much, and so when he says to me now, hey, I'm going to take this out on the trampoline, I know he's really going to go out there and do that.
That's
you know.
Good.
But we have, while we've done the seat work at the kitchen table, we've looked always for opportunities to, what can we do on a walk? So I bring flashcards on a walk. I would bring our audiobook if we were listening to on a walk. He would shoot basketball and I would quiz him on memory work. You know, we would do chalk on the driveway to review memory work. Anything that we could do out of doors, we both love to be out of doors. Math just wasn't one of those things. Writing just wasn't one of those things. So we would do what we had to at the kitchen table, and then we look for ways to stretch our legs.
That's
when
good.
we can. Yeah.
That's really good.
You know, I will also say that, again, people listening could be at all different stages of life. Were there days that we took everything to the playground and worked? Yeah, there were. And there were days where we took it to Panera. And I mean, Nathaniel will still say, can we go have a cup of coffee and an orange scone and bring our books there? You know, and so we will do that. Not as often as we used to, because we just have more books now. You know, the material has grown. And so with that, the flexibility changes just a little bit. We've done school at friends' houses. We've taken turns with our kids. We've planned creative things. There's just not one way to do it. Where we are right now, it's kitchen table and then outside for the most part. But I would say those who are in different situations take advantage of the flexibility. I think I'll make one note here also, is that as things have come up in our own family dynamic, my kitchen table wasn't always the kitchen table. My mom moved here 2 years ago, and she has a number of different specialists. I take her to those appointments. Sometimes if it's a long day away, Nathaniel will come along. And so he does school in the waiting area. He's learned that can be his classroom. 3 years ago, my mother-in-law was ill for several weeks before going to be with the Lord. I went out to Missouri to be with my father-in-law, take care of him. His kitchen table was Nathaniel's classroom. And that was beautiful. We were already in the mode of what we were doing. And so that transition was just no big deal.
Right.
So yeah,
that's good.
It was a blessing. Yeah.
That's really good. And I think you already touched on this, but tell us more about, when do you homeschool?
Right. I said briefly, we pretty much do a school day, like a traditional, you know, we're in community on Tuesdays. The other 4 days, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, are pretty much our school days, because that's my husband's work schedule. And it's just not any fun for him to be home and my son's doing schoolwork. So pretty much we do participate in some things that once a month he's off on a Friday to go camping with his trail life troop. Well, we have that flexibility. If it means he has to do a little extra on Thursday evening or a little bit on Monday morning that carried over from the last week, we have that flexibility. For the most part, we're doing the school day hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I love how in your life and in your family situation and with your student that you have, you began by going, hey, we're going to try this. And it was through trial and error that you kind of found your niche, you found your rhythm, and you kind of get to know your child. Like, what can they handle? Is it too much today to try to load up and go somewhere else? And again, like I said in the first episode, like, who knows your child? Like, who taught your child how to eat and how to go to sleep and how to walk? And, you know, it's constantly a learning trial and error thing. You find your stride for a while, and then as they change ages, then you find another stride.
Well, it's like that in all relationships that are valuable. It's like that in a relationship with the Lord. It changes over time as we mature and as we grow, and with our husbands and with our families. And so this is no different. It's a relationship-based journey. And so give yourself the freedom and the flexibility to shift as there's growth.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people right now shifting in flexibility with current situations. Tell us, what would you tell someone who feels kind of just thrown or thrust into this season in their life.
So Carmen, I had jotted down these notes before I watched your first episode yesterday, but some things are going to maybe sound slightly familiar because the first thing that I would say is to remember that you, parents, grandparents, are the God-given primary educator in your child's life. Right. He didn't do that accidentally. And so regardless of where your children have gone to school up until this point, public or private or homeschooled, you are the primary educator. You mentioned yesterday, you taught them to tie their shoes. You taught them to eat with a spoon. And so when you make the addition to homeschooling, to homeschool, really you're saying, well, in addition to teaching you about life and love and serving and worship, I'm going to teach you about literature. I'm going to teach you about language arts and math and science and social studies. You're saying, in addition to what I've already been teaching you, we're going to take this next step. And so I have just kind of 3 things I would say after encouraging them that they've already been put in place to do this, that they can do this. And you and I both rely on the Lord for that strength. And so the very first thing I would say is to look up. I look to the Lord for the strength to do anything he asks me to do. And I recognize if I don't do it in his strength, it's just not going to be as wonderful as it could be. If there are those who are thinking about this journey and certainly don't yet have a relationship with the Lord, I would just take a moment to say, this is a great time to learn about your dependence. You were built for dependence on him, and he's ready to help you, enjoy the blessing of that dependence. So I would encourage people to look up to the Lord, be real about the fact that you're scared about this new season. You have questions about this new season. After you look up, I would say to look in. And this was what was so cool. You said this yesterday, so I think it bears repeating. Look into yourself and find out what your tendencies are. Where are your weaknesses that you're going to, are you the kind of person that likes to sleep till noon and then your husband's home at 4? So you're going to need to make a shift there. Are your weaknesses just in how you relate to your children? Do you just need to work on the relationship there? Are your weaknesses that you're just afraid? Look inside to see what needs dealt with. And don't be afraid, because we've all got it. And then look into your children. What are the current strengths that can be celebrated and built upon right now? And where are the areas that if you're having to jump into homeschool, really you're just being given an opportunity to give them one-on-one tutoring that the public school and the private school just couldn't do? What are those areas of weaknesses or those areas where they just need a little bit of extra that you can do right now? Nobody could tell you those areas like you know those areas. So I would say look up, look into you and your children, and then look around. And if we look around, we're going to find some great resources. So Carmen, you're a great resource. There are some great relationship resources. If you're listening to this in the Savannah area, you and I know for sure there's great resources. If you're in the Savannah area, I would encourage you to look into one of the great co-ops. You and I are both familiar with Family Education for Christ, which is not a curriculum association. It's just an association of families doing school in all sorts of ways for their children, but with a Christ-centered perspective. And then look around for the different curriculums that are available. There's always a lot of resources, but I guess I would like to just take the opportunity for those who are having to jump into this and don't know where to begin. A lot of things are being made available for free right now that aren't typically free, or at a reduced price, or a free month. And that's what I would encourage people to look at. I was online yesterday. So I'm just going to mention a few specifics. Is that okay, Carmen? Okay. So those of you who think, I have to start this on Monday, I don't know how. Scholastic Magazine, if you just Google Scholastic Magazine at home learning, they have 20 days of at-home activities based per grade. They incorporate science and reading and hands-on, like I think history, all kinds of different things. So you could look that up. It's totally free. If you're looking to do math with your students, Khan Academy is totally free. You can look per grade. Extra Math, which is XTRA Math, totally free resources there. IEW, you and I are both familiar with the Institute for Excellence in Writing. If you look up IEW right now, they have a free 3-month language arts program available online.
And it's so valuable.
It's so good. I'm so thankful we got the chance to do that at home. We learned so much through that.
If you're naturally inclined for that subject, you're going to love it. If it's a struggle for you, struggle through it, wrestle through it, because it has so much value. So much value. I honestly feel like it's super for those that do struggle, because it's almost formulaic in its approach to language arts and writing. And those who maybe aren't natural writers just need to tell me what to do first. Tell me what to do second. So it's called IEW, or Institute for Excellence in Writing. I also happened to see last night, Hooked on Phonics is giving 1 month for $1. So those of you that have little ones, you've got kindergartners and first graders at home all of a sudden, and you're thinking, if they miss 2 months, where will we be?
I've not used Hooked on Phonics personally. It's been around for years though. So I'm thinking for $1, it's worth it.
I've used it, and I have the actual like hands-on learning packet. So I don't know what they're offering online. And I will say it is also a very valuable resource. I think it's very user-friendly and very easy. Naturally, kids will be or will not be easy learners with spelling and phonics. So if you have a child that just is not getting it or seems frustrated by it, maybe lighten the load for that day or something. And then you might have a child who wants to do all of it, in one day or whatever. I've been on both ends of that. So,
that's good
but it's definitely worth looking into because it's a really useful curriculum.
Some online resources available for $1. So, look into it. And then I have not used this website, but I have known a lot of people who have. It's All-in-One Homeschool. So just like it sounds, allinonehomeschool.com. And when you go to allinonehomeschool.com, it says easy peasy all-in-one homeschool, a complete Christian homeschool curriculum. Literally, as you scroll down, it's every grade and every subject. It's online resources.
Okay.
This is just a starting place maybe for those who think, I need to start like yesterday and I don't know what to do. And so some of those are of a Christian nature. Some are not. All are really valuable resources. And then I would just encourage folks, as of right now, I don't believe the libraries have closed. They do online requests where you can have different books sent to your own library to go pick up. The Hoopla app, Hoopla, is the last resource I want to mention. It's a totally free app. RB Digital also. They both work with your library card. Okay. So if you can't get out to go to the library, if you download Hoopla or RB Digital, you can enter your library card number and you can download books to read for free and download audiobooks to listen to for
That's
free.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. I've learned something today too.
Good. Oh, if you don't Hoopla, you need to Hoopla. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lana, so much. You brought a lot of useful information, a lot of context to how you do what you do. And I hope, and I know that someone will connect with your story and go, if she can do it, I can do it. Because I connect with that. Good. So thank you for your time here today. Is there any last thoughts or comments that you want to say before we end today?
I don't think so, Carmen. I just thank you so much that you're doing this for everyone. And I really hope that somebody is encouraged. And how about we just make a commitment that we're going to be praying for those that step into this as rookies. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the team.
You're not alone.
That's right.
And all of your wondering, am I enough? Can I do this? Yes, you can. And yes, you are enough for your child. Absolutely. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.